understood doesn't have to be explained. The presumptive top overall pick in the 2025 draft, minted as such shortly after 8 Eastern. Cam Ward, tabbed as the franchise guy in Tennessee. CBS Sports' Aditi Kinkhabwala caught up with QB1 shortly after.
Cam, we've presumed this for quite some time, but now that it's official, what feels different?
That I finally can find somewhere to live now. I can start looking at houses, and I'm ready. I've been dreaming of this, and I'm glad I get to do it in Nashville.
Head coach Brian Callahan told us that from the very first meeting, he thought this might be a fit. When did it start feeling right for you?
Really after the season in Miami, when I found out when they had lost that game to Houston, they got the first pick, I knew it was destiny. Just seeing that team and what they went through just a year ago, I plan on, getting there and trying to change things around. I want to win a lot of games with those guys, and, I just want to be a good teammate at the end of the day.
In your conversations with Coach Callahan and knowing the quarterbacks that he's worked with, what are you most looking forward to?
Just learning more from him every day. I still got a lot to learn in the NFL and in my football career, but I'm doing it behind one of the best, offensive minds out there and one of the best head coaches out there. So I'm ready to get to work. I'm ready to sit with him, the OC, the quarterback coach, and, the defensive staff and learn what they do too.
Who's the first new teammate you've heard from?
The first new teammate, I would say C. Rid. I heard from him, Tony Pollard as well, and Lockett.
Is Ridley asking for the ball?
You already know he's going to ask for the ball, but I'm going to make sure I give it to him, though.
All right, perfect. Thank you, and congratulations.
Congratulations there in order for a dream realized by Cam Ward and 31 others in round 1 of the NFL draft. A look at your top 10, where the Jags trade up from 5 to 2 for the two-way star in Travis Hunter. Cleveland now owning the Jags' 2026 first and more. Ashton Genty becomes the highest drafted running back since Saquon some 7 years ago. Tet McMillan, your first true wideout, selected at 8 to Carolina. The goal always being, get out of the top 10 next season. Post-draft is presented by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico. Joe Musso, pleased to be alongside our draft experts in Ryan Wilson and Rand Carthon. Fellas, long night, lot to sink our teeth into. And Rand, I want to go to you first here because you have an intimate understanding of that player and that place, the marriage in Tennessee. How do you like that fit? And how does Cam Ward start the process of going about fulfilling that promise of being the first overall?
I think it's a great fit, and you lean on Brian Callahan's experience in working with quarterbacks from young guys to the older guys, and he understands how to meet every quarterback at every point of their career in which they are. And so in the next step for Cam is to get in the building, get situated, and then just put his head down and just go to work and spend as much time as he can with offensive coordinator Nick Holtz and quarterback coach Bo Hardegree and just learn this offense, get into it, and just also build a relationship and a rapport with his new receiving corps. He hasn't worked with these guys, but you have a Calvin Ridley, you just signed a Tyler Lockett, and you're getting a Traylon Burks coming off of injury. And so you got those guys now, and now you know where you're going to be, and now you can start building a rapport with them.
Hey, Ray, let me ask you this. What's the biggest pitfall you want to avoid for a young quarterback? Because Cam has had success everywhere he's gone, like many young quarterbacks coming into the league, and it's going to be a different animal like it is for every quarterback coming into the league. And what do you need to guard against, not so much in OTAs or maybe even training camp, but once the preseason and the regular season starts?
Just overload with information. You don't want to overload them with information because there's going to be a lot to process anyway. And then the other trick to it is teaching him how to take the verbiage from his previous system and how to marry it with the current system so there's a language there that you can help speak with him, and then also sprinkle in some things that are comfortable for him. And that's how Brian Callahan minds work. So I think it'll be a good marriage for those guys.
Information and expectations certainly at 1. Ryan Wilson, we had him at 1 for a while now, but as it is cemented there and you take a look at Ward in that offense, the development, where does he need to grow fastest, soonest?
That was going to be my follow-up, and we talked about this last year. And again, Joe, we all know that you're a Bears fan, but one of the things that Caleb had to work on early was not playing so much hero ball, which is what he had to do at USC because in part of the offensive line struggled. Same thing with Jayden Daniels, but it felt like the marriage in Washington was better for him with Cliff Kingsbury in terms of helping him have success early on. And I think that's the thing with Cam. He plays a lot of hero ball, and I would imagine he had these conversations throughout the process with teams asking him, why would you not take the check down here, and how are we going to get you to be able to take the check down at the next level? Because as you know, sacks are going to come fast and furious if you try to do too much every single play.
It became immediately apparent after that first overall pick that we were in store for some wheeling and dealing here in this first round as well, where The Jags trade up to 2 and land one man that plays as 2. How do we like this deal for both parties involved? Because, yes, you get the two-way star in Jacksonville. You pay a pretty penny. The Browns now positioned nicely with an extra first next year as well, Ryan. When you saw this trade on the surface, one that we heard mumblings of leading up to the draft, does it feel like there's a winner one way or the other, or both teams walk out feeling good about their side?
I think both teams win, but they win at different times, if that makes sense. And by that, I mean that I give Andrew Berry a ton of credit because there was certainly probably a lot of pressure on him because Travis Hunter is the #1 player on my big board, and I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. But the other thing, Rand, is that James Gladstone, the new GM in Jacksonville, gave up a first-round pick in addition to the second and a fourth this year to go 4 spots, and that feels rich unless you hit on Travis Hunter and you think he's going to be who you expect him to be.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think both teams walk away feeling great about what they've done tonight. James Gladstone steps in and you shoot your shot.
Yeah.
You go and get a guy that you truly coveted. And in a market like Jacksonville, which is seen as a lower market team, you get one of the most exciting players that have come into this draft in recent time. And now you have that to promote there. And then if you're Cleveland, you still sit at 5 and get a premium player for you and your defense to move forward, and you get the picks not only this year, but you get the picks next year as well.
Right.
How do you put a price on something that we haven't seen in a very long time? And we saw the price of it there as Jacksonville moves up to 2, Cleveland moves back, maximizes some of that future compensation. But the Jags got a nice piece there, whether they want to help out that defense, that pass defense that ranked near the bottom of the league last season, or roll them out there next to BTJ and get things going offensively. It's going to be exciting in Duval. The Giants, meantime, had the night they wanted to, kind of drew it up this way. You get best available there at 3, you get back into the first and draft what could be the quarterback of the future. How do you don't have to put a grade on it, but how do they grade out in your eyes tonight? This has to be a glowing success.
It's like we talked about this. We talked about this off camera, and if you were the New York Giants, you walk out of here with the pass rusher that you covered it, and that may have been the #1 player on their board. And then you move back into 2, you quiet the questions about the quarterback of the future, and you're able to get that. We've talked about it forever, it feels like, with knowing that they were there at 34 and the possibilities of them moving back into the bottom of 1 to get a quarterback, and that's what they did.
All right, we don't want to get too far out in front of the story here, but they now have an interesting quarterback rooms on their hands, certainly with a couple of veterans there, Tommy DeVito as well. You have a head coach and a general manager, Ryan, that don't necessarily have time on their side. What does the management of this quarterback room look like moving forward?
That's the big question, right? And as you reminded me, ownership is running out of patience with the direction of the organization, and you brought in Brian Dable to get the quarterback situation fixed. First year with Daniel Jones worked out, and then things went sideways, and now Daniel Jones is no longer there. And here's the other thing to keep in mind, and not to throw a wet blanket on the first day of the draft if you're a Giants fan, but historically when 2 quarterbacks or fewer go in round 1, the second quarterback taken almost never works out. The only exception is 2008 with Matt Ryan going first and then Joe Flacco. The other quarterbacks that have been drafted since then in a 2-quarterback-only first round have been, I don't want to call it cringeworthy, but it's tough to look at in retrospect. So hopefully the Giants can buck the trend with Jackson Dart, but history is not on their side.
It's going to be interesting how they figure that out and develop a young quarterback in Jackson Dart at the same time playing with that urgency that they need to maintain those jobs. But you see there from Kayvon Thibodeau some excitement coming in from his teammates already there in New York. The biggest story perhaps, and there were quite a few of them, is the story that was not made, that being Shedeur Sanders sliding to day 2 of the NFL draft. Ryan, as recent as 2 months ago, we were talking about this kid as a potential 1-1. Now we're talking about day 2. How do you process it?
It's hard to process. Like I'm trying to find the words here, in part because, okay, Shedeur Sanders wasn't for everyone, and we knew that coming through this process. Some teams weren't crazy about the way he interviewed, and that's okay. But there seemed to be, and I think Rand would agree, that if Kenneth Grant were gone for the Steelers, they might give serious consideration to Shedeur.